All right, lads and lasses, and good day, mates. Welcome to another episode of the Tune Under podcast, the planet's favourite Newcastle United dedicated podcast, in our opinion. Today, we're going to be talking about the Leeds game, and would you look at that, the latest form guide? There's a big, fat, juicy green W right next to the name of Newcastle United. And that can mean only one thing. Newcastle have remembered how to win a game of footy. Get in!
Magic. I feel we need a celebration as well.
Oh, I don't know how you do that. Anyway, so that was Newcastle United's first away win of the season, of course. It's actually the first time, if this is correct, that Eddie Howe has actually won against Leeds. And it's the second 3 points that we've picked up in the first half of the season. So, man, does that feel good. I'm going to start, as always, by saying hello to the guys who are joining me today, and it is Mark over in good old Brisbane town. How you going, Mark?
Yeah, good. Feeling much better. A bit down in the dumps after my booster shot, so it was a little bit wiped for a few days. But yeah, sort of good 3 points in the bag makes you feel better.
I was going to say that must have cheered you up.
Yeah, definitely.
Too right. And it's our Andy Carroll lookalike, although not so much with the Glegs on. And resident happy Newcastle man, Dimi in Victoria. How you going, Dimi, mate?
Much happier this weekend. So how lucky are we? We've won 2 in 21 now, so couldn't be any better.
On a roll, mate. On a roll.
We are.
2 in 6 months.
Here we come.
And yeah, congratulations on the win, by the way, mate. Did you actually get to see much of the game?
I did, actually, luckily for me. So it was a pretty long day, long night. So the wife fell asleep pretty much on kickoff, so that worked out well, and
perfect.
Got to watch the game in peace and celebrate without waking her up, which is good.
Don't get too used to that. All right, brilliant. So we're all feeling good. We hope you all are feeling good at home. Let's get straight into this match review right after this. All right, welcome back. So let's get straight into this desperately needed 3-point victory away to Leeds at Ellen Road. I'm going to start by reading out the teams, as I always do. So to start with, Newcastle, Dubravka in goal, then Trippier, Lascelles, Shaw and Dummett at the back, Willock and Shelvey in the middle, and then Joe Linton, Fraser, Chris Wood and Alan Saint-Maximin making up the rest of the team. And for Leeds, it was Meslier in goal, Ayling, Laurent, Struijk, Dallas, Koch, Rafina, Klitsch, Rodrigo, Harrison, and James. So, Mark, any thoughts on that Newcastle lineup going into this game? It probably isn't that far off our strongest 11 available to Howe.
Yeah, I think it kind of almost picks itself at the moment. Obviously, the talking point before the game was Willett coming in and Longstaff getting dropped. So I don't think many people would have an argument against that, given his performance in the Watford game. I thought he was very, very poor. After a reasonable display against Man United, it has to be said. But yeah, it kind of seems like it's our strongest team on paper at the moment, at least. And it's nice to kind of see Trippier in there, Chris Wood still in there, and yeah, Ryan Fraser working hard, Joe Linton still in midfield. I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah, and Dimi, in the preview show that we did, you said that you'd actually drop Jamal Lascelles. He hasn't been great, in fairness. How did you see this lineup, if you got to see it, and when it was announced that is, and specifically on Lascelles, how do you think he did? Just very quickly.
So I thought Lascelles was fine. He was solid. Didn't do anything stupid, which is probably what's cost him, and didn't do any of those monumental errors. It was a little bit wishful thinking that Dummett was going to be centre back instead of the captain, but Jamal did his job and marshal the defense as well as he could before he went off injured. So probably, in fairness, a good decision.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to get into the first half. The first half of the game was pretty much majority Leeds, in my opinion, without really causing us too much in the way of any headaches. There was that snap volley from Shelvey that had Meslier diving to make a 2-palm save. But apart from that, it was pretty much in my opinion, again, pretty much low on quality and goal mouth action. And we managed to get through the first half 0-0. And there was like extra 5 minutes added on the end of the first half somehow. I mean, I think it should have been more like 8 with the length of time. For example, Shaw was down. First, I'll start with you, Mark. I mean, that was basically all I've got to say about the first half. It was just, mostly Leeds, lots of possession, not a great deal of anything else. Mark, what did you make of that first half? Anything that I've missed? Anything that you want to call out?
As from my memory, Dubravka made one absolutely cracking save from I can't remember who
James.
it was from. James, was it? Yeah. But apart from that, there was nothing that really was super troubling from Leeds, but they did look good when they were passing the ball around, and on the break, we looked like we were defending well and they were playing well, so it was kind of like cancelling each other out. Cracking volley from Shelby, but again, really good save. We had a couple of instances that we looked like we were almost in on goal. It looked like we were getting some passing together, and then sort of rabbit in the headlights or something. I mean, Willock was put through, didn't know what to do with it, passed it through to Joe Linton on one occasion, and then very, very early in the game, and Joe Linton was kind of like crowded out, got a shot away, but went over the bar. So, it's like nothing that really flattered us apart from that Shelby shot, which basically came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I will say that we definitely activated Operation Time Waste right from the first kick. Every time Dubravka got that ball, man, he's like basically setting up a table and chair and sitting down having a meal before he's ready to kick it again. Did he get caught at it all, Dubravka, for time wasting?
I don't think he did. No.
That's unreal, man. It was taking the piss. Dimi, what did I miss on the first half? Anything that you want to mention?
Yeah, the one thing that concerned me about the first half, I mean, Leeds didn't really have a clear-cut chance except for that James one. The one thing that was concerning me was Rafinha one-on-one with Dummett. I did feel that he looked like he was going to create something. He did go around Dummett 3 or 4 times in that first half. Not Dummett's fault. Rafinha is world class, but there were a couple of cutbacks that did cause us problems. So that was probably the one area that I thought may trouble us going forward. But in terms of the rest of the half, Leeds didn't really cut us open like I thought they would. And to get to halftime 0-0, we probably thought that's a win at that stage.
Yeah, Dummett, he's just too slow, man.
Yeah.
I think I said in the last one as well, he's just too slow. He gets turned so easy. But in his defense, he's only just came back from injury. And we'll get onto injuries a little bit later on. All right, so yeah, I don't think there's much more to add to the first half, so might as well talk about the second half then. And that's the second half is really when I noticed a bit of a shift in the dynamic of the game. It felt to me a lot like, and this might have been more in the mid part of the half, but it felt a lot like Leeds were overcommitting almost players going forward, and they were starting to leave a lot of space behind them. If you remember the preview, Dan, the Leeds fan, basically said that's one of the ways you can attack Leeds. If he was talking Freddie Howe, he'd say basically, we attack all the time. We never change our game. This is Leeds. And we're going to leave space behind us. And that's obviously an opportunity for you to get back in there and do some damage. And I think that's basically how it turned out. I don't know if Leeds were starting to run out of puff or what, because they did a lot of running. But there again, also, they were slowing the game down quite a lot as well, especially around the halfway line. They were just kind of back and forwards, sideways, back to the keeper, like as if they weren't in any kind of hurry. So second half, when I started to see us kind of take a little bit of control, there was lots of chances flying around. I mean, it was back and forwards. I remember Jack saying on the live view that it was like a basketball game. It was like just one side, the other, one side, the other, one side, the other. Teams were trying to impose themselves. I don't think either team really did manage to impose themselves all that much, unless you look at Leeds' possession, of which they had a lot more than we did. I suppose the first point to really mention, though, is that early in the second half is when Big Joe went down with an injury. An apparent groin issue that he's been carrying all season, which is pretty remarkable when you think about it. He's been our best player for the last few games, and he's been playing around with a broken dong or something. He's got like a dodgy groin, and he's still managed to be like a really effective player for our team. So it's amazing that he's actually managed to get this far, really. But in his place came Sean Longstaff, who I think it was a collective sigh as soon as we saw Sean warming up, because yeah, he wasn't good against Watford. He does have a tendency to, and he did it in this game actually, he does have a tendency to leave the ball. I don't know what goes through his head, but it's almost like he's going to do 1-2 with someone, and then when really his turn to pick up the ball, he just pisses off, and the ball's just lying there, and you're like, "What are you doing, Sean? Man, you've left the ball behind you." And he did it at least once I can think of in that game, probably more than once, really. But I think looking back on that, Sean was all right, wasn't he? He didn't do anything particularly bad that I can remember. I think he did all right, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he had a decent game. I mean, obviously, stark comparison to the Watford game. I think he did okay against Man United, but like he was nothing special, but didn't really make any complete blunders in midfield. Didn't give the ball away as much as he has been doing in the past. So yeah, I can't really complain about him too much when he came on.
Yeah, Dimi, I think you had the same thoughts, didn't you, when we were doing the preview? Didn't really want Sean Longstaff anywhere near that team. In fact, you were basically quite adamant that he didn't do this, he didn't do that, didn't do anything. He shouldn't be anywhere near the team. But on reflection, how do you think he did?
Yeah, on reflection, he did pretty decently. I mean, if you look at our bench, there's no other option except him or Hendrick. And as bad as Longstaff has been, I don't think we all want Jeff Hendrick coming into the team. So he did okay. It does worry me when him and Shelby play together because they're both similarly laconic and they don't really put that defensive effort in, which can be frustrating. You can sort of walk through them in the middle of the park. He did have a decent chance as well, which I thought he should have done better with in the second half, where he snatched his shot wide when he had probably a lot more time than he thought. So it was definitely progress from the last game, but nothing to write home about, in my opinion.
Well, he didn't do anything terrible.
It's a very low bar. Clearly, it's a clearly low bar that we're setting for Lascelles. We're setting for Longstaff. Where as long as you don't fuck up and completely give a goal away, we're saying you've done a good job. So if that's the bar we're setting, then fair play.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's definitely worth writing home about. Dear diary, Sean didn't fuck up. Anyway, so 20 minutes later, Paul Dummett goes down with what looked like a hammy. We'll get on this in a little bit. And he was replaced by Manquillo. Now, when that happened, we on the live watch thought that we're probably going to swap sides. So Trippier would come to the right, and then Trippier go left, then Manquillo go to the right. But in the end, it looked like Manquillo just stayed at left back. I didn't see him move, I don't think. And in fact, it was his run down the wing and then in towards the goal box of Leeds that drew that foul from Laurent, how you ever pronounce that. And that's where we got the free kick, and it was going to prove a costly one for Leeds. So, yeah, let's talk about the goal. So initially, it was Trippier and Shelby standing over the ball for the free kick. There was a four-man wall covering the nearer post, which was at the keeper's right. And Meslier then covered the far post, which was at his left. And Shelby steps up, takes the free kick. And let's be honest, it was shit. I mean, it wasn't a very good free kick. He even admitted afterwards that he scuffed it. So I'm not like saying that out of turn. Even he knew it was a shit free kick. But I think if you watch the replay, you'll see that Meslier, for some reason, maybe because the advance in Newcastle players in the box, he takes a slight step to the right and he leaves just a bit of space where that god-awful free kick's going to go bouncing into. And in amongst all that, of course, there's then Clark and Shaw trying to get their toes on the end of it. I actually, honestly, at the time, I thought Shaw had got his studs on it or something because I thought I saw a change in flight of the ball, but I've seen it about 1,000 times now, and I'm still not entirely sure whether anybody touched it. And if they had there was an issue of was it going to be offside, and I think it would have been fine anyway. But in the end, it was given to Shelby. He reels away, does his little goggles thing, runs all the way to the away fans who were being tremendous again. I mean, they were just fantastic again. Only 2,500 of them, but it sounded like a home game at times. It was just brilliant. And there was all the fans and all the players are celebrating together. And it's brilliant. Dimi, thoughts on that goal? And then Mark straight after.
Yeah, so even though he said he scuffed it, I think when you hit a free kick like that across the keeper with players running across, it can cause havoc. And I've always felt that sort of style of free kick where you just blast it, bounce it before the keeper, it can be difficult to save. So if you didn't mean to do that, obviously it worked out well. But obviously with the run from Manquillo, it was a sensational run and stupid by Llorente because I think you'll see on the replay that Manquillo's touch was, even though he did do the defender, he was quite heavy. I'm not sure he was going to get the ball or going to do anything with it. So it did help us that Llorente made that bad mistake. But as I said, sometimes you just got to have a dig at the keeper, and sometimes they'll make a mistake. And luckily for us, Meslier completely stuffed it up.
Yeah, no, he did all right. He wasn't very happy with himself afterwards, Mark.
Yeah, I think it was a bad decision from the keeper. I think he was, as Dimi said though, you find yourself as a keeper. I think you would be conscious of the defending the players as much as the actual free kick itself, and making sure that you're not kind of getting caught out from that. Anytime the ball bounces in front of the keeper, though, you're always in with a shout. Adds that element of sort of unpredictability to the ball. So I think he just got done with a bouncing ball in front of them, second guessing himself, and yeah, I don't really care how it went in, as long as it went in. That was all we wanted.
Oh, I mean, we were all diving around like absolute fucking idiots on the live view. And I was a few seconds behind the rest of the lads, so they were already celebrating. And I'm like, I appreciate they've scored a goal, but I kind of dare celebrate because I don't know what I'm celebrating yet. And then it went in, and I'm like, I'm celebrating, they've already finished. It was a bit disjointed, but yeah, we absolutely loved that goal on the live watch. It was brilliant. You know what I loved most about that, though? I mean, all right, it was a shit kick that ended up being a brilliant goal in the end because it went in. But what I really liked about it, and I was watching it, I noticed this live as well, was that so it was Kieran Trippier and Shelvey standing near the ball, and we weren't sure exactly who was going to take it. Obviously, Trippier's got a reputation for being quite a good dead ball free kick taker, and Trippier just basically he was standing to the ball, but then he started to kind of marshal all the Newcastle players. He was moving people into the box. He moved Shaw. I think if it was Shaw, he was behind Trippier, and he was like, "Oh, man, he'd have Shaw, so get into the middle, and he was like making sure everyone was exactly where they were. And Shelvey was obviously, I suppose, Shelvey was concentrating on taking a kick. But bear in mind, though, by this point, Shelvey was captain because Lascelles had already gone off. I just mentioned Clark was moving in on goal, and that was because Lascelles had gone off. And so Shelvey's captain. You'd expect Shelvey to be the one doing this, but he was obviously focused on taking a kick. And I just loved how someone else took the responsibility. Someone like Trippier, who's got a bit of a history behind him of being a decent player, England international and so on, has that kind of gravitas that you can tell even new teammates where to stand, and they're going to listen, Yeah. And then just before the goal kick was the free kick was taken, Trippier kind of runs back into a sort of a center of the field position, just off camera, ready to get any kind of second balls or any break up any kind of counter attack from the free kick. And I just loved it. I loved everything about that. Trippier himself was actually caught a bunch of times. He was getting too far up the pitch at times in Leeds with their pace and with the passing ability. He was getting left completely out of position quite a few times. But just on his kind of potential to be a future captain of this club, that was a lovely, lovely example of it. So anyway, 1-0, 15 plus minutes to see out because that was on the 75th minute. And I remember Craig saying when we scored against Watford that was a good time to get a goal because it was just after the half time. But in fact, my opinion is that it was actually a terrible time to get a goal because this being Newcastle, we can't hold on to Leeds. We all know that. We can beat Leeds, but we can't hold on to Leeds. See what I did there? You see, got to keep listening. And so when we scored against Watford, I was like, okay, brilliant. But this is like an entire half that we're going to have to try and defend. When we scored against Leeds, there was 15 minutes plus extra. So I think for me, scoring round about then, especially in a tight 0-0, was a far better time for a team like Newcastle, low on confidence and losing so many points from a leading position to defend successfully. I mean, I think we did it. We're not the greatest defending team in the world, but we did pretty well. I can't remember Leeds really having much more in the way of chances. I mean, they had a lot of running still, but and Newcastle
had plenty of the ball, but they didn't have any clear-cut chances. And I think Newcastle actually had the better of the chances for the rest of the game. But that's the difference. They didn't sit back. And whether or not, as you said, it's only 15 minutes. So for them, psychologically, it's not as much of an issue because, look, we've only got 15 minutes to see out. Whether or not it is because they sat back against Watford and, we all saw how well that turned out. Maybe that was at the forefront of their mind. And, that has been working on that, going, look, if we go up, we can't sit back and defend. We've got to keep going. And they did that. They definitely did that.
Well, it was interesting because in his post-match, Shelvey was actually basically saying that all week they'd been working on that mentality of not sitting back if they were going to go ahead in the game. They've been practicing all week basically on continuing to keep the ball, try and maintain some control over the game, manage the game essentially, which is what they didn't do against Watford. And they've been working on that all week, and I think it really showed. Yeah, Leeds were starting to make a lot of space behind them, but it doesn't make any difference if you're not going to attack that space. And time and again, Maxi was running that kind of space, and he was starting to get a bit of space for himself to do things. And then, of course, that led to that really contentious VAR decision. So basically, Maxi's got the ball, he's running at the box, and he does like a pullback. And as he does that, he kind of loses his footing a little bit and starts to slide. And then you've got Koch coming in to try and defend, and he takes away Maxi's standing foot, I believe it was. So Maxi's foot starts to go even further back, and he ends up on the floor. Lots of people screaming for a penalty. I've seen lots of pundits all saying that there was a cast iron penalty. I'm still not 100% on it. But in any event, VAR just kind of waved it away, which is basically the story of our season, it seems, every time we get one of these. We hardly ever get anything. So without your tinfoil hats, Dimi, you go first with what you thought of that incident and whether you thought it was a penalty. And then Mark after that, please.
Definite penalty. I mean, the only reason for me he didn't give it was probably Maxi's reaction, flailing his arms, and potentially leading up to that, Maxi did have a few choice words to the referee about a previous incident where he was pulled back. So I think the referee remembered that and said, "No, you're trying to pull my leg. You might have got some contact, but you've embellished it. So I'm not going to reward you for being a pork chop and having a go at me." So that's unfortunately how it goes for us this season, or for many seasons, by not getting the decisions from the ref. But for me, he took away his standing leg, like you said, completely beat the defender. So clear pen.
But it's one thing for the ref to do that on the pitch, but what about VAR? There's no excuse for that.
Well, that's the thing. So VAR their argument would be, it's not a clear and obvious error, blah, blah, blah. But the fact for me, after that incident, I think the ball didn't go out for about 2 minutes. So they use that as a convenient excuse to, even though they say they check it all the time, I think you usually find if the ball doesn't go out in that preceding 30, 45 seconds, the VAR sort of pretend to say, we've checked it, play on. They don't want to break the game. But if you watch the next few weeks, and if you see an incident where the ball doesn't go out after the potential indiscretion, they'll generally let it go. So I think if the ball had gone out, there might have been a few more demonstrations to the referee, and there might have been potentially a VAR check.
And Mark, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think it was a Stonewall penalty. I think I was having a chat to someone on social media about it after the incident, and as I summed up, if that is Mo Salah going down or Bruno Fernandes or someone with that little contact, and you can say it would be a soft penalty, it's minimal contact, it's still contact, and those players for a fact are going to get the penalty given. And this is the thing, and you look at the controversy with VAR yesterday as well. The decision going the way of the big club for a very similar incident to what Fraser wasn't awarded a penalty for when he was clattered by the keeper, and people saying, but he was nowhere near the ball. But it's all the time, and this is what's frustrating. It's not the decisions, and I think as fans, if that's how they want to call it, then that's how they call it. It's the inconsistency that's so frustrating, and that was a prime example where we've seen those given all the time. There was definite contact. VAR is there. The ref may not have given it. The ref may have been in the huff with St. Maximin because he threw a strop at him for not giving the free kick when he had his shirt pulled back. But that's what VAR is there for. They should be checking that, blowing the call back and saying, right, yep, you know what, that is a penalty. Stop the play. They've got a mic. They've got a sort of a speaker in the ref's ear. They can be in contact with them. They can see that and go, look, you know what, stop play or whatever. We'll come and have a look at it. You really need to see this again. It looks like there's contact. But no, there's none of that. And it just seems that they just pick and choose which incidents they want to scrutinize until they get the decision they want. Or they let the ones go that they just don't want to overturn because it suits them. And that's how it looks at the moment.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. The inconsistencies are the worst part of this whole thing. I mean, it's still people behind the scenes. That's the problem. People make mistakes all the time, but people are also prone to bias and to make decisions, maybe it's not even consciously, but to make decisions that favor one side over another, just because people are people, and that's how people are. at times.
And be that
And
as
so-
it is, there needs to be accountability from the governing bodies for the referees, so that if they do make these mistakes, and they can show them and they can say, look, you got this one right, you got this one badly wrong, it's exactly the same sort of incident, you need to fix this up, you're out for 2 games, you're not refereeing, go away and learn how to referee a game. There's no accountability. They're above the law themselves, they feel, so there's no incentive for them to improve the situation.
And I think the accountability part of it is actually something that could fairly easily be addressed. I did a tweet on this, and I think, Mark, you might have already done one as well. Basically, wire up these people, stick a microphone. Yep. They've already got microphones, in fact. Just broadcast it. It happens in cricket. It happens in rugby. It happens in AFL over in Australia here. There's no good reason that I can think of other than just simply protecting themselves from criticism, that they aren't broadcasting the voices of the VAR team as well as the voice of the referee. And they don't have to have it on all the time. You know, like if it's a VAR decision that is actually happening and it needs a proper review, I mean, it doesn't have to be for every single occasion. And perhaps this is why they don't do it, because maybe they do a lot more VAR than we even realize. But still, it would be a great insight as much as anything else, just to hear what the ref is asking about and to hear what the VAR is seeing. We see the replays on TV anyway, so we know what we're looking at. But the interpretation of that and why it isn't an obvious error is, I think, in this case, would be at least one way of exposing the workings of this closed box right now, and provide maybe a little bit more accountability. Are they going to do it?
Do you not think even if they had things recorded, they don't necessarily have to broadcast it at the match, but they do it other sports, and I get that. But at least if they've got it there on the match review shows and all of this sort of stuff, they can then go, look, this was a really dodgy decision. This is what the ref was talking about. Make it more transparent. Make it more transparent. And if the fans can hear what's going on and it's legitimate, then they're going to be a lot more accepting of decisions going badly if they're hearing the reasoning behind it, unless it is just this dodgy, it's Man United, we've got to give a penalty.
Yeah, they did do that in the A-League a few years ago. I'm not sure if you guys remember. Jared Gillette, who's actually now in the Premier League, he was mic'd up and actually released the audio of him refereeing and him conversing with the VAR when he was doing a game. I think it was Brisbane Roar versus somebody. Let's say it was Mariners or whoever it was here in the A-League. And that received great feedback around the world. Everyone saying, this is fantastic. This is what we want to hear. We want to hear the interaction between the referee and the VAR as to why they've made a decision or why they didn't make a decision. Yeah. It would just clear up all the grey area. I mean, the only voice of reason now for us here in Australia is that bloke on Optus Sport, that former referee, who comes on and says, yes, they got it wrong, or no, this is why, and that's not good enough, to be honest. We need to hear the actual referees to say, this is why I've made this decision or why I didn't. And if you've made a mistake, just own it and everyone moves on.
Yeah. Yeah. I still don't think they'll do it because, it's a lot easier not to, basically. It keeps them away from criticism. We all know people in power don't like criticism. So anyway, just for the record, I wasn't quite sure about whether it was a penalty or not, simply because if you watch it back, he does get clipped, obviously, but the ball is kind of away from him already. That's not the most important thing. But you can see that he lets his left leg drop to the floor, basically, once he feels the contact on his other foot. And maybe the referee thought the same thing. Like you were saying, Dimi or Mark, you've tried to call me once or twice already, or you've been yapping away in my ear all game. Bugger off. This is what happens. This is because he was going absolutely berserk in the first half when he went down. He was waving. He was like, you're a dick. He was like proper remonstrating with the referee. Anyway, but I can see why, people think it's a foul, and I'm an idiot, so what do I know? So anyway, so that was the penalty that wasn't. We managed to see out the game after that. There was another 5 minutes added to the second half, which again was a bit baffling. I didn't think it was anywhere near 5 minutes, but maybe that's just because we're absolutely shitting our pants waiting for the end of the game and hoping for that win. Because let's face it, we've got form in pissing it up in the last few minutes. Anyway, we managed to get through it. All the fans, all 2,500 of them, all went home happy up there, 1-0. And on the live view, we're all diving around like absolute fucking lunatics. It was absolutely brilliant. And it was 3:00 in the morning, so to have that kind of energy to jump around was pretty good for us, I think. I was knackered. All right, let's talk about the injuries then. So first, Joe Linton. So he was carrying that knock all season, the groin injury that Eddie Howe mentioned. This one seems like it's been one game too far. And he went down once, if you remember, then he tried to carry on. Then he went down again. I hope he hasn't made it any worse by trying to carry on like that. Haven't seen any update, I don't think. I don't know if you guys have. I haven't seen any update on how he's doing or
I haven't really seen any updates on any of them, to be honest. It's been very quiet.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's good. I mean, they are busy being in Saudi Arabia, so maybe it's something to do with that. But first, Mark, what do you make of the loss of Big J?
I think it's devastating blow for him more than anything. I think he's been one of our outstanding players since Howe's come in, and the transformation we've seen. I think Bobby's been pushing hard for him to get a Brazil call up for the World Cup, hasn't he? So maybe a step too far for that, but he has been fantastic for us since he's moved back into a midfield role. I think we'll miss him. His control on the ball and he's tackling, and most of all, his work rate. I'm not surprised he's having some soft tissue injuries given the amount of running he does in the game for us. It's going to be a big blow.
Lots of running, lots of jumping. Dimi, what do you make of that loss, and who do you think we'll actually replace him with? Will it be Willock?
Yeah, well, Willock was already in the team, so it probably won't be Joe if we're going to stick to the same 4-3-3 that we've been playing. It is a blow. I mean, Jolinton's been the best player since Howe's come in. He's been sensational. He's been revitalised and rejuvenated playing in that deeper role. So his physicality as well, I think, is going to be really, really lacked. I mean, we don't really have that sort of powerful Mo Diame, Sheikh Tiote enforcer in the middle of the pitch, which we still lack even with Jolinton in the team. So that sort of physicality and that ability to just shield the ball or put a big tackle in is something we will miss. So hopefully a few sunny days in Saudi Arabia will do his groins good.
His groins?
His groins. Groin.
Groin. Yeah, right. Groin. Yeah. Okay. There was some kind
he may have multiple groins. Maybe Joe has multiple groins. I don't know.
Yeah, he is pretty fantastic. All right, so that's Joe. And then after that, it was Dummett who went down. Probably the least surprising of the three injuries that were picked up here. He's only been, his second or third game back. And at first glance, I actually thought that was a bit of a hammy. But do we know how bad that one is? Or was it just simply one game too many in such a short period of time? And then you, Mark, please.
Yeah, it sounds like from how that's what it was, the latter. It was probably coming off a long-term injury, playing 2 games, not as if in a short span of time, but playing 2 games in 2 weeks. Probably his legs at his age can't cope with that. So hopefully it's more of a tightness issue than a full tear issue for him more than the team. Because the team, I think we can cover his absence at left back, but him himself, he probably deserves a good run of games after all the time he's been out for.
Yeah, I think he's been out for a while. It's not surprising. The good thing for me is at least he didn't go down. He didn't sort of pull it off the play. He went down under a challenge, I believe, and kind of was a bit slow to get back up again. Was feeling a bit sort of like battered and bruised, maybe. So yeah, maybe it's still just caught up with him. But at least it wasn't sort of like an obvious he's running after the ball and suddenly something pings in the back of his leg and he's sort of like shot by a sniper or something. So. I mean, it's just wait and see, I guess, with him as well. It does certainly him no favors whatsoever for his contract renegotiations. It has to be said.
That's true, yeah. And here's the thing that's just popped into my head: if this was Cabbage Heed in charge of us still, and he brought back Dummett and played him twice or 3 times in 2 weeks, whatever it was for Dummett, and he went down injured, we'd all be saying, "You absolute fuckwit! It was obviously going to happen. You've played him too much. He's only just come back. What the hell are you doing?" Is Eddie Howe going to get that same kind of criticism, or are we all just like, oh, yeah, I mean, whatever? What do you think?
I don't know if Howe's going to. I don't know if Howe's going to get the criticism because we had history with Bruce of doing that time and time again with players. If Dummett's fit, he's played a game. If he's still fit and he's not showing any signs of wear and tear from that previous game, then why not? You've got to be playing him, but. It does beg the question, and I'm not saying that Howe is above criticism, and this is something that has been sort of discussed a little bit on social media leading up to the fact that we won our second game. We hadn't been winning, and it's like at what point do you start pointing the finger at Howe? And we know we as fans can't have those double standards. We have to sort of maintain equal criticism, I guess, across the board if that's the point that we want to make about playing players that are not 100% fit or just coming back from injuries and then we lose them again, then yeah, it's actually not a bad point. But I think it's kind of like the one-off at the moment, and it's not the history that Bruce had of multiple players being brought back too soon. It's not like Dummett's been back training for a long time, and he hasn't put him back into the squad until he was sure that he was going to be fit. So, Bruce would put someone back in. Oh, you've had one training session. Yeah, quick, back in the match day squad. At least he hasn't done that. So there is some little subtle differences between what's happened. But yeah, time's going to tell.
Yeah, Bruce would be like, "Oh, you've got one leg, but you've had 3 days off. You're fine. Get in there." Dimi, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's no Florian Lejeune situation where he's coming off a knee reconstruction. He's playing 2 games in 5 days, so it's not as daft as that. But if Dummett was probably a more, all due respect to Dummett, if Dummett was a more important player, let's say for the 11, we may feel differently. But the fact that we've got cover and he's not exactly irreplaceable probably waters down in any sort of criticism we might have of that decision.
All right, fair enough. And as Mark says, I mean, you could look at Fraser. He's been injured for a while, but he's actually starting to really find a bit of form here now. So there's a situation where someone is actually being managed back to decent first team fitness level. And yeah, maybe it's just specifically to do with Dummett and his was it his hammy? Was that what went?
I think it looked like it was tight. I don't know whether it was a hamstring pull as such, but he just sort of was obviously feeling a bit of discomfort.
Yeah, right. Well, speaking of hammies, the last one that we went off was Lascelles, the captain. And I think this one looked a bit more serious, but my memory's failing me at the minute. Dimi, thoughts, if it is serious, Dimi, thoughts on losing the captain for a while? That'll make you pretty happy, won't it?
Well, yeah. I don't think, again, he's not someone who's irreplaceable, especially on his form this season. So it might coincide well with the new centre-half that we might bring in this week. Him coming out, the new centre-half coming in, playing alongside Cher, it probably looks like that might not be the worst thing. So, yes, again, no disrespect to the captain and the cells, but the way he's been playing, not a huge loss.
And yet he was all right in this game. What do you think about that, Mark?
Yeah, I thought he had probably one of his better games, but the whole team seemed to lift for this one. Whether or not there was the lack of pressure from a home crowd, just they felt a little bit more at ease just playing their own game rather than having to fulfill the expectations of a full St James's Park. I don't know, but if you look at right across the board, even as we said, Longstaff had a great game. Fraser was on fire. Even when Clark came on, and we've got Clark who, the last time he played, made a pretty bad mistake to lose us the game. And a lot of fans were saying they never wanted to see him in the squad again, which was a bit harsh because he has actually done really good job for us in the past. But if you look at his game, he was solid when he came on. Manquillo was great when he came on, really added something else to the team. Everyone just seemed up for it. And we defended as a team, we attacked as a team. So I don't think any one player was being singled out. And even Martin Dubravka didn't start flapping and do some weird, crazy stuff in the box. So happy days.
He was actually pretty good as well, wasn't he? And I'm the first person to whinge about one of his bloody palm to the opposition type things, But I actually thought he did all right. He held the ball a few times, got down low really quickly at times. Yeah. And then obviously he did the time wasting thing where they just kind of lie on top of the ball as if they're pregnant or something for like 5 minutes. I don't know how he didn't get a yellow card. Anyway. So that was the game. In any case, so Newcastle won 1-0 despite all the odds and VAR, and we're all very, very happy about it. Let's have a look at the league table to see where that leaves us. So we are now third bottom, getting a nosebleed, lads. Third bottom, 15 points, 2 glorious wins all season. Yeah, we are only still somehow 1 point behind Norwich. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't expecting Norwich to be there at all. So all credit to them, and Dean Smith is doing a cracking job at Norwich. And then from Norwich, there's 3 points gap to Everton, and then there's another 3-point gap to Leeds United. It's looking a lot better, isn't it?
Oh, it's looking fantastic. And if you look at the fact that we've still got to play Norwich, we've still got to play Burnley on the last game of the season. Let's hope it doesn't come down to that. Yeah. But, we've got 2 games against Everton that could end up being massive for us. If we win both of those, that's 6 points. It's basically a 12-point swing on Everton if you start doing the whole 6-pointers game. And we could drag them right back into the relegation fight. We could drag ourselves out of it just with those 2 games. So I think the Everton games are going to be crucial for us. And then, it's just a case of scraping the points together for the rest of the season. Hopefully we get some new faces in, and that win hopefully convinces people that we are on the up and we are improving and we're worth a gamble on joining.
And I think they're talking about getting another 5 players in. I don't know how they're going to manage that in the next 7 days or something. But Dimi, yeah, a bit more comfortable now. We can go off to Saudi Arabia with a bit of a smile on our faces.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny, 24 hours, how long that can be. So before the Watford Norwich game, we would have thought, geez, we're 4 points behind Watford already. If they win, this is going to make it tough psychologically going into the Leeds game. They lose, Norwich jump us, but Watford stay within striking distance. We then win, and all of a sudden we've jumped Watford, even though they've got a game in hand. And Norwich, the only team above us, are up above us by a point, but we have got a game in hand on them. So, like Mark said, it's potentially dragging Everton into it. We play Everton twice, which is good for us. Leeds as well are being dragged in, and even Brentford, who's not on this screen, probably potentially another candidate to be dragged into it.
Yeah, I think Craig was saying Brentford are in a bit of free fall right now. But yeah, I mean, Burnley have still got like 60,000 games in hand. So I still maintain this thought that you can't really be sure where you are until they get some of those games out of the way, because it's still basically a false position for a lot of teams down at the bottom there. But yeah, damn sight better than it was a couple of weeks ago, that's for sure.
Indeed.
So let's just finish this off with a man of the match. I'm going to go with Shaw. I think Shaw was absolutely fantastic. He was everywhere. He didn't do any stupid tackles at the edge of the box, which has become his forte lately. I also want to give a shout out to Fraser, who was just brilliant. Never stopped running. Had that shot on goal. Didn't quite catch it right. But yeah, I'm going to give it a Shaw for me. Dimi, and then Mark.
I will say Trippier.
Oh.
I would say Manquillo for the way that he impacted the game if he was playing for longer, but the fact that he came on as quite a late sub, it's not really fair. And as much as it pains me to say it, because he isn't top of my list in my favourite players, but I'm going to give it to Shelby. I thought he was brilliant in the middle of the park. He tracked back, he scored the goal, he had a cracking volley attempt as well. He was pushing forward, he was passing the ball well, held on to it well, didn't do any of his little dinky sort of one touch backwards and forwards to the defender who's just given it to him to sell everyone in short. So yeah, I think he had probably one of his best games I've seen him play for a while.
Yeah, he was pretty good. I actually did see him run from the opposition half all the way to our own half and do a bit of defending. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like,
I know.
Wow. That's another bold person on the pitch.
Listen to this. Listen to the standards we're setting. We're saying players running from one half to another. No one fucking up. These standards are world class. Clearly,
we're so demanding as a fan base.
Wow, we're so demanding. Yeah. Gosh.
Oh, yeah, man. Honestly. All right, so you've already touched on it. Next game is going to be Everton in a couple of weeks. First team are out in Saudi Arabia right now for some warm weather training, and that also includes, I believe, a training game indoors away from the cameras against either the league champions or top of the league team. I forget who it is in Saudi Arabia. So that'll be interesting to hear how that goes. I'll be honest, initially I thought that was going to be a terrible idea, and if I had a loss against Leeds, I would have been banging on about how bad that idea was. But we've picked up injuries. Some of them may be soft tissues. We've got a win. Why not? There's 2 weeks. Go out there, bond a little bit. Maybe we can get some new players in and get them out there whilst we're still there. And it looks like it was a brilliant idea. Hopefully there'll be some announcements when they're out there, maybe some sponsorships. But anyway, that's where they are. So we've got a couple of weeks off until Everton. All right, that'll do it for us. Next episode will be probably in a few days. Keep your eye on the notifications for that. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be just yet, but yeah, it'll be in a few days' time. Got a fair break until the next game. Thank you, Mark. Cheers, Dimi. Thank you, all you lovely subscribers, for watching or listening. As always, we're available on Twitter at TuneUnderPod. Our website is tuneunder.com. And we're on YouTube and Facebook. Just search for Tune Under Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and especially give us your comments and feedback. Every little bit of interaction helps us build the podcast. I mean, I know it's hard to believe just how absolutely mint we already are. But honestly, we can definitely get better. I know it's amazing. Look, sound effects. We've got sound effects for the first time. What next? Confetti across the screen? I don't know. Lasers? Could be anything. Don't know. But keep subscribing so that you don't miss out on that fantastic bit of special effects that might be coming or might not be. Who knows? All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching or listening. Stay safe out there. However, the mighty mags. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.